Hi, I'm Jeremy Caplan. Welcome to Wonder Tools. I'm sharing today an exciting new presentation tool called Chronicle that allows you to present slides, create presentations in a beautiful way, elegantly, easily, quickly, and in a way that makes it a great alternative to PowerPoint or Keynote or Canva or any number of other presentation tools. So what you're looking at right now is the website for Chronicle. It just launched publicly this week with a waiting list of 100,000 people after they raised $7.5 million and spent a couple of years developing it. And you can see it's quite visual in design, but the best way I think to see it is to see some examples of presentations made in Chronicle. So I'm going to show you a few examples of presentations made with Chronicle. I'm going to show you a little bit of the interface of how you create something. I'm going to mention a couple of limitations that it has, particularly in these early days as it's just in a public beta launch. And I'm going to show you a couple of alternatives you can use if you want something different that also works really well. So first up, let's look at a couple examples. This is a presentation about Chronicle made in Chronicle. And one thing you can see is that the presentation allows you to focus people's attention. So I'm using a feature called Hover, where as I hold down the Command key or Control key on a PC, it highlights specific things that I'm wanting you to focus on. I can also click on an individual image, which is a peek feature that allows me to peek at a particular element of a slide in more depth. The primary form factor within Chronicle is what are called widgets, these little blocks. It could be a block of text, it could be a visual block, or it could be an embed block. And you can embed material from all sorts of different places online, like an Airtable table, a Graphy graph. Graphy is a tool for making charts and graphs that are really cool and can be embedded. A Google Sheet, a Figma illustration, a YouTube video, a Notion page, a map from Google Maps, a Calendly appointment link. Pretty much anything that you have online, you can embed into a slide on Chronicle. And you can also direct people's visual attention horizontally or by hovering and peeking on individual items. So it's a very visual kind of slide tool. When you're done creating a presentation, you can export to a PDF and share it with someone. You can publish a link and send someone a link, or you can present live. So there's a lot of different ways to deliver a presentation or share a presentation or publish a presentation. And it's used a lot for pitch decks, right? It's a well-designed tool for presenting numerical data or financial data or making the case for something. But it can also be used to demonstrate a product, to show the results of a project, to summarize a project that you've worked on, as a portfolio tool where you can even highlight individual things that you've created. You can have multiple elements on a slide. You can move things around and drop a particular widget wherever you want it to be, which I really like. The tool I use for creating my website, called Tilda, is similarly modular, where I can put whichever modules I want, a text module, a headline, and then an image, and then an embed, and I can move them around and stretch them out and replace them really easily so that I have a flexible canvas. And that's the thing I like most about Chronicle, is this flexible canvas where I can put things exactly where I want. I can resize the text really easily, but it's easy to organize, and I can even add a grid or add a gradient background. So it gives me a lot of control and freedom and flexibility as to how I design something. I can add these elements, these advanced widgets, which have elements in them, or I can build my own from scratch if I want it to look in a particular way. So on the plus side, it gives me lots of flexibility. On the downside, it means you have more opportunities for decisions to make and adds a little bit of complexity. But there's an AI option as well, where you can ask the AI to give you a starting point. So you can upload a PDF, you can give it a link, or you can paste in some text or just type in a prompt and ask the AI to give you a kind of an outline. And then you can move around the elements of the outline, and then you can edit the draft that is generated by the AI after that. So this is an example of some of the kinds of things that you can do with Chronicle, and you can peek again and see the elements within an individual slide, or you can go back to the overall slide. This is an example of a data slide that has some text embedded from a great data visualization service called Our World in Data. And if we look at another example, this is a proposal made with Chronicle, and it's chroniclehq.com, by the way, the link. And it's free for now while in beta. It will ultimately be free to create an unlimited number of presentations with Chronicle. But if you want the AI features, all of the AI features, you'll have to pay $30 a month for a pro subscription for AI credits and to remove the Chronicle logo up here, the watermark. So you can see here another example of a different kind of slide presentation. This one has the characteristics of something you'd send to someone to read asynchronously. So it's not just a visual presentation that you give live, but an actual document that you deliver a strategy report, for example. Here's another example of a design strategy proposal. And you can see here a nice mix of simple slides with a GIF embedded here and a timeline and a different form factor for a timeline and milestones. And you can adjust these grids. You can make the text larger. You can do all sorts of things to customize this and personalize it. You can add more visuals into whatever kind of setup that you want. You can add a team section where you highlight the people on your team. So it's really flexible to be used in the same way you'd use a PowerPoint or a Keynote or a Google Slides presentation, but it has a little bit more visual polish from my perspective. Here's another example. This is a style guide made with Chronicle, and you can see a mix of nice text components and visual components and a pretty nice visual language. Here's a case study made with Chronicle, which has a nice combination of small blocks, larger blocks, multiple blocks per slide. This one has actually elements going horizontally, so it shows you can use additional horizontal space to expand the canvas. You can have these blocks of 4 elements. You can make them 4 or 6 elements. You can then highlight an individual element to make it a little bit larger and focus people's attention on it when you're presenting. And finally, one purely visual kind of curated collection of images. This is a collection of design objects. And you can see a really nice visual feel. It doesn't feel like a static slide. It doesn't feel like something that's been created with a slide tool. It feels like something that's just visually designed and visually engaging. So these are all examples of slide decks made with Chronicle. And here's the website again that shows the overall look and feel of the company. Here's one that I'm working on as an example of how you actually use Chronicle. So this is a slide deck about Wonder Tools, just as an example. And what I can do is insert additional slides. I can also remix an individual slide. And this is one of the challenges that you'll face initially with Chronicle at the moment, and one of its current limitations, in my view, is the complexity. So there's 64 different ways you can remix a slide with all of these different styles, right? 4 media in a grid format, 3 with a heading, and 5 media elements. There's so many choices to be made that it can be overwhelming, particularly when you're first encountering this, or if you don't have a really polished vision for exactly where you want to go with it. So I spoke to the team, and that's something they're working on. It will be simplified. There'll be more templates. There aren't templates quite yet. That's another limitation as of this recording. So there are a couple of those limitations. It's also difficult to edit the visuals at the moment. So those are a couple of limitations. There's no mobile app as well, although I prefer to edit on laptop if it's a presentation I'm editing. And most people, I think, would prefer that, just to have the space to edit in the browser. By the way, it works on any browser, so it works across operating systems. But those are a couple of limitations: the complexity, the lack of editing tools for images, the lack of templates at the moment in the beta. Those are a couple things to be mindful of. Just in the interface, a couple other things to be aware of. You can add a little bit of a gradient or a cool kind of background, which I like. It's a subtle touch, but it makes the text pop out a little bit more visually. You can also change from a dark mode over to a light mode if you want to at any point. And that's a nice option to have either for an individual chapter, like an individual slide, or for the whole presentation. So that's a nice touch, and you can change the fonts, but you don't have an overwhelming number of choices of those, which actually is a nice amount of simplicity here. And then again, you can insert any number of elements. So you can insert text cards, you can insert paragraph text or heading text. You can insert icon cards, which are these little icon elements that you can then drag around. And you can have as many of these as you want, or as few of these as you want. You can change the font on these. You can change the background or the color. You can erase them. There's also a few different other elements. You can add a sticky note, a quote, a mock-up, which basically gives you the look of an iPad or iPhone or social media post. You can embed a variety of different kinds of content. You can embed images, add images, icons. So those are the kinds of things you can do when you are creating or editing a presentation. When you're creating a new presentation, you can create a new document, and then you can basically start with a prompt or paste in some text or import from a URL. If you give it a link to something you've written, for example. So I'm going to paste in some text here just to give it a starting point, and we'll just see how this process works. Now, there are a few choices I have when I do this. What I can do is I can choose the kind of material I'm creating. Am I creating a pitch or a product showcase, a sales deck, a proposal of some sort, a research report, a knowledge guide, a meeting, a portfolio? I'm going to actually ask it to create a little knowledge guide. And this is just some kind of dummy material about how simple language is more effective for presentations than using complicated language. And I'm going to say that I want it to have a handful of chapters. Let's say we'll give it 5 chapters and we want it to do a subtle rewrite. So we're giving it some creativity. It doesn't have to adhere exactly to my text, but we want to give it some room for flexibility, and we want it to be in English. You can use this for any number of languages. And then we click continue. And now it's going to analyze this content and come up with a structure. Once I have the structure, I can then reorder it, and I can change the kind of template that it's going to use for each of them. And then I'll basically have it go to work and create the actual draft, which I can then edit. I, in general, prefer to start from scratch, but if you are someone who wants to do something quickly, or you need to do something quickly for any reason, you can do so. So this is giving me an outline of the presentation and the different sections. Now I could go in here and choose a different option, but for time's sake, for this demo, I'm going to go with the guidance it gives me. I could move these around, so I could decide, you know what, I want this section to be here and the third section to be second. But again, for now, I'm going to say, go ahead and create the presentation. I could also adjust the theme here from dark to light, but I'm just going to click generate presentation. And now it's going to create the presentation. It's going to add some preliminary kind of general background imagery. And it's going to give me these 5 slides, which I can then edit, adjust, improve. I can add slides. I can subtract slides. So it's going to work in a flexible way to allow me to maintain agency and control. So it's creating a landing slide, and then it's giving me some individual elements on each of these slides. It's actually produced a pretty text heavy kind of structure initially, so I might add some imagery, but you can see here how this is looking. There's quite a bit of text on this slide deck, so I might, cut that back. I might also edit some of these elements, edit these images, but at least I've got a starting point for this presentation. And there you have a little picture of what this looks like. You can see here with each of the slides, I have some different options. Maybe I want to add a glow to the title. Maybe I want a title above an image here. So there's a variety of different ways I could restructure this. Maybe I want some background changes to the image that it's using. And then when I present, I just click the present button, and now I can go through this deck and present it like any other slide deck, or I can share it. And if I share it, I will publish it to the web and share a link with folks. So in that sense, it operates like other tools. A couple last things I'll show are the alternatives that you can use. So there's obviously the Canva that we all know and love. It's got a lot of templates that are great to choose from. It has so many different features. You can record a presentation and share it with someone. You can use your phone as a remote control for your presentation. You can generate certain slides or images with AI. You can redesign elements with AI. There's so many great features that it has. It's quite flexible, and it works with all of the other plugins and tools that Canva has, which makes it really powerful. Another great tool is Beautiful.ai, which is made for slides specifically. Unlike Canva, which is made for just about everything, Beautiful.ai is just for slides. And it has a great functionality where it will actually move things around based on what you do to it. So if you have 3 bullet points, for example, and you add a 4th, it'll reflow that whole slide for you automatically, which is just an amazing feature. And here we're seeing on the homepage, and you can test this out at Beautiful.ai, some of the examples of the kinds of slide templates that are built into the tool that you can then easily use to kick off any kind of slide deck you're creating. So you can use AI at the individual slide level. You can use AI to generate an entire deck based on a document or a PDF. You can also not use AI at all, which is what I often do, and just have the AI basically helping you reflow the material visually when you add an element manually. Pitch.com is a great tool for presenting. Also, this whole category has gotten so much better in recent years. We can move beyond the plain old PowerPoint or Google Slides by using any of these tools. This one's great for collaboration in particular, and for tracking analytics. You can see who's been looking at your presentation, which slides they spent time on, how deep into the deck they went. So this is great if you're sending sales proposals or other kinds of pitches. Typeset is another one that I really like. It can be used to create ebooks and other kinds of visual designs, even social posts. It's a really efficient, creative way to generate visual presentations, but it does cost $17 a month, billed annually. So it's not cheap necessarily. All of these tools have a freemium model, so you can test them out a little bit for free. We do have, of course, the Google Slides, the classic that we all know. It's a good workhorse. It works reliably across any device. It's consistent, it's free, and it does what you need it to do when you need something in a pinch. And then finally, Gamma is another great alternative. So this one also allows you to create multiple different kinds of materials, from presentations to even full websites that are vertical, or documents that are vertical, social media posts. You can start with AI. You can paste in a link or a document. You can use a prompt. You can also do it without using AI. just by using it as a canvas to create beautiful slides in. So there's some alternatives to Chronicle, but it's a great starting point if you're building a new presentation these days and you want a new kind of look that's polished, clean, professional, and strong. Chronicle is a great new choice. And we've looked at how it works, what it looks like. We've looked at some alternatives. We've talked about a couple of limitations. Love to see what you think of it if you try Chronicle yourself.